She howls, she bites, she wants to take me down with all of her might. She snarls, she growls, but I am ready to put up a fight. I've been in therapy for 100 years, and there's a peace that I finally found. I let go of so many fears, and she is not gonna push me around. I'm taming my inner critic. You're not welcome here anymore. I'm taming my inner critic. Allow me to kick you out the door. She kvetches, she complains. Her demands make me feel so insane. Every detail of my life is analyzed and sliced up with her knife. But I am woman, just watch me roar with a force that she can't ignore. Every positive word I say gives me the power to push her away. I'm taming my inner critic. You're not gonna win at this game. I'm taming my inner critic. If this is how you spend your days, oi, you should feel ashamed. From now on, I win and you lose. I'm taming my inner critic. You know the truth. You are like so yesterday's news. But then she says, you know, you're really not that smart. Why even try? You're just gonna fail. And I say, I am enough. And she goes, don't eat that donut. Are you gaining weight? Is that another wrinkle? And I say, I am beautiful. Then she says, you know, you're really not very talented. You might as well just play it safe. I say, I am worthy. I say, get off, get back. It's time, it's now to claim this life as mine. I'm taming my inner critic. You have no power over me. I'm taming my inner critic, knowing my worth has finally set me free. So back off.
If your inner critic doesn't back off after a song like that, you need to go schedule a time with a licensed practitioner. Thank you, Lainey. Oh my goodness. Anybody in the room have an inner critic they'd like to tame? Me, that would be me. Wow, yeah. How many of you can recall relationships you've been in? It could be in your home, it could be in your workplace, it could be in the community doing volunteer work. But just think, have there been any relationships in your life that were really, really difficult? Ever? Ever? And you're kind of over them now and you have forgiven that person or that group of people, yeah? You think of a couple of situations like that? Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious, but I don't want you to raise your hand. In some of those situations where it's been really, really difficult and you have then forgiven the other person, how often do you find that you haven't forgiven yourself? for what you contributed to that relationship. I know one example that comes to mind for me was a while back, almost 20 years ago, and there was a coworker, another member of our executive team, and he was horrible. He was so difficult to work with. We were always at odds. And he was my client in the organization, so I had to work with him almost every day. And when I left, there were very few things. I mean, I left because I chose to, and I went to start my own business, but I loved the company. I loved the work. But there was a very short list of 3 reasons I was glad to be moving on in my life, and his name was at the top of the list. I won't have to deal with him every day. And even 3 years later, you know, I had done a lot of forgiveness work about him and about how we worked or didn't work well together. And every time he would come up or his name would come up, I would do forgiveness work. 3 years. 3 years I realized that when his name came up, I was thinking about, yeah, you know, he was really genius about this. Or he really cared about his people and he would go to bat for them. And I would hear myself saying all these nice things about him and not even thinking about all of the tension and the strife. So I'm thinking, yep, my forgiveness work is done. I'm good. I use these spiritual practices. And then I was having lunch with someone I had worked with, and they brought up his name and they gave an example. And immediately, I was not upset with him, but I started saying, yeah, you know, he really was a smart guy. I wonder what I could have done better. I wonder, you know, if we had another chance, if I could try this communication technique. Or, you know, I really feel bad that I wasn't able to build a positive relationship with him. And all of a sudden, I heard myself, I was taking full responsibility for this relationship that had not worked, and it was both of our faults. But all I had left in me was my part in it. And I had spent 3 years forgiving him, and it had never crossed my mind that maybe I needed to forgive myself and what I had contributed to this relationship not working. And in that moment, even though I didn't have the language for it that I have now, really what happened was I recognized that the biggest victim of that entire bumpy relationship, at that point, the biggest victim was me, because I had not released myself from my contribution. You know, before I left the company, it was always all his fault. Right? All his fault. He didn't know what he was doing, or he was, you know, and then I forgave him, but I forgot to forgive me. So one of the things that's really important, I think, is for us to take that moment and realize that in order for us not to be our own biggest victim in the relationships that we have and in the things that we do and the interactions we have with other people, it is important for us to stop and release ourselves from the prison of self-condemnation. Now, I love what Ernest Holmes says about self-condemnation. He said that self-condemnation is always destructive and should never be indulged in by anyone. It is always a mistake. It is always destructive, and please take this in. It should never be indulged in by anyone. Now take a deep breath on that. Because Ernest Holmes did not write, it should never be indulged in by anyone except for Randy Stem. Randy Stem, he can be self-condemning if he wants. It doesn't say, no, it does not say that Kathy Navani has permission to be self-condemning. It doesn't say that. It says that no one, none of us should ever be self-condemning. It is a mistake. when we don't forgive ourselves, what we're doing is condemning ourselves to relationship hell, or to hell, the way that, however you want to frame that, because we are not letting go and living in the present moment. We are not demonstrating that love, which we know is our primary impulse in the world. We spend a lot of time focusing on forgiving others, especially when there are tragedies happening in the world or things that we don't understand. And we feel maybe a little helpless to stop. And so we forgive the perpetrators, and we forgive the people who have died, and we forgive the people who are acting from hatred and allowing fear and hatred to generate violence in the world. And we spend a lot of energy forgiving others and forgetting to ask the question, what in my life, what in my actions, what in my conversations, what in my relationships, what in my own thoughts about myself am I doing that contributes to self-condemnation in the world, to fear and to hatred? What am I doing that contributes to something showing up other than love? And we want to recognize that, not to condemn ourselves, but instead to love ourselves through it, to let it go, to surrender it to the divine so that the divine can send more love through us. So talking about that sounds pretty simple, easy, it makes sense, it's logical. Because all that is saying, you know, as you forgive other people, also forgive yourself. And there's a song, one of my favorite songs of all songs, really. It is such a powerful song, and it's titled, I Forgive Me. And when I heard this song, and maybe this happened for some of you too who are familiar with the song, when I heard the song and I heard the lyrics, I was like blown wide open to just how much more there is, and how I need to, on a regular basis, scan my own thoughts and my own feelings and ask, what is it time to let go of? And I love these lyrics so much, I want you to take them in. I'm just going to share a snippet of the song. And I'm going to say the lyrics line by line, and I invite you to repeat them after me, so you not only hear me saying it where it's coming to you, but you also say it and feel the power of these words. So repeat after me. I'm tired of guilt that brings me shame. Now it's time to let go of the pain. I put the past behind me. I start anew. I'm ready for my change. I forgive me. Take a breath. And just listen and take that in. I'm tired of guilt that brings me pain. Now is the time to let go of the shame. I put the past behind me. I start anew. I'm ready for my change. I forgive me. I forgive me of ignoring what's happening in society and thinking, oh, that's happening to those other folks out there. There's nothing for me to do. I forgive me for blaming other people in my life for what's going on, instead of stepping up from Kingdom 1 victim consciousness up to Kingdom 2 consciousness of manifestation and self-responsibility. I forgive myself for making that mistake. It was an honest mistake. Now I can focus on what I'm going to do going forward. I forgive myself for any and everything that I have done that made someone else uncomfortable. I forgive myself for being so busy and so focused that I walk right by people and don't even acknowledge them. What is it that you are ready to forgive yourself for? Because that is what frees you from being your own biggest victim, no matter what is going on in the world. And one of the things that I love about Ernest Holmes is he reminds us all, when we read Science of Mind, that everything starts with the intention, right? We start with a clear intention, and we live with conviction in alignment with that intention, and it must come true. But in this moment, when I say to you, all right, forgive yourself, and many of you are like, yeah, today's the day, I'm ready, I'm going to start forgiving myself. What I know and what Ernest Holmes reminds us is that a change of consciousness, going from a pattern of not forgiving myself on a regular basis to a new consciousness, which creates a new pattern where I forgive myself and I am no longer my victim. A change of consciousness does not come simply by willing it or wishing it, simply by speaking it or saying right now, that's who I'm going to be. It starts there, but it does not come simply by wishing or willing. It is not easy to hold the mental attention that is required to actually demonstrate consistently that new ideal, while the human experience of what you go through every day is showing you something that is different from that, showing you something that is discordant to the new intention. A change of consciousness does not come by simply willing or wishing. It is not easy to hold the mental attention to an ideal while the human experience is discordant. It may not be easy, but it is possible. I've done it in my life and continue to do it in my life. Eugene has done it in his life and continues to do it in his life. And so I'm going to invite him up to go to the next place on this journey away from self-condemnation. Eugene Holden.
Good morning. Good morning. So there are, what is it, Star Trek number 90? Who knows? Okay, maybe number 9. But who remembers the original series, the television series? And remember how it started? Space, the final frontier. I have come to recognize that no, space is not the final frontier. Relationships are the final frontier. Why? Because it will take you to a place you've never been before. It's like, these are the stories of the Starship Eugene. Going to places that, oh my God, can we turn this ship around? Relationship is the final frontier. Not just your intimate relationship, not just your work relationship, not just your relationship with the person at the store or the laundromat or wherever, but especially your relationship with, yes, yourself. I love babies. See, because our relationship with ourselves, see, that's where it starts. See, relationship with self is about really taking the opportunity to look at self and then to forgive maybe all the mistakes, Eugene? How about all the mistakes that we may have made within ourselves? Because once we start to forgive ourselves, which is a very courageous thing to do, but once we begin to forgive ourselves, then we become free. I have this idea, and it's just my idea, I believe, that forgiveness is the key to freedom. See, forgiveness is the key to really opening up and allowing ourselves to live the life that we are here to live. Forgiveness also brings us to this present moment. How does that happen? If I am not willing to forgive whatever happened, let me pick an individual. No, I'm not going to name any names at all. But when I am unwilling to forgive an individual that I perceived has done something to me in the past, I'm still stuck in the past, right? So the event happened, let's say 6 years ago, and I'm going, they should have done this, and you owe me this, and it didn't. I am still stuck here. This person, they have gone on to live their lives. They don't even know that I'm tripping. They don't know that I am sitting here holding on to something that happened so long ago. And so this is why I say that forgiveness brings us to this present moment right here and now. Had an interesting situation happen in my life. I woke up. Had an interesting situation happen in my life many years ago. And it was after a divorce, a terrible, emotionally draining and just hurtful experience. And as a result of going through that, I had not done my forgiveness work. Regarding my beautiful ex-wife and the mother of my 4 kids. And as a result of me not doing my forgiveness work around that, the subsequent relationships that I got into, oh my goodness, talking about wrecking lives. Talk about wrecking lives. And there was this one relationship in particular that had me really wake up. I had not only sabotaged this relationship once, after a year of being apart, this woman had the love enough to take me back, and I sabotaged it twice. And that's when I had to say, Eugene, let's take a look at you. What is going on with you that keeps you from allowing yourself to be loved? It is not an easy thing to look at self. And so the relationship that I had to cultivate was a relationship with me. Oh my God, people, it was like, it took me through, It took me through so much, but I had to be willing to do it because I was tired of hurting. I was tired of being my own victim. I was tired of just not living a life of joy. And this woman, oh man, she called me on my doo-doo. I'm going to tell you. She called me on, well, because I'm in church, so I can't say what I wanted to say, right? Caca. But she called me on my stuff. I'm in Prac 1, I'm going through classes, and I'm the joy of God, and this is how it looks on the outside. And she said to me, Eugene, you talk a good game. Talk about a low blow. I was like, oh. But she was right. So how many of us talk a good game? How many of us pretend that life is always good all the time? I'm one. I used to be one that would say, yes, life is good all the time, but my life was falling apart. Why? Because I had not taken the step to forgive self. Once I began to do that, it was like all of a sudden things changed. No, it wasn't. It took time. It took time because sometimes, I don't know about you, but me, I get pulled back into the old ways of doing things. And so, I forgive myself for this, but I'm still going to go do this. Oh, I got to forgive myself for that too. Oh, man. So it's with this relationship, and I really do believe that relationships are the final frontier, and it's a wonderful, vast frontier. It's a wonderful, vast frontier, and relationship with self will allow us to experience that vastness. So the work began, and I began to forgive self. And as I began that process, then I also began to really forgive the ex-wife and forgive all of that situation, which I thought that I had done. But what I recognize is this, is that if I have not forgiven myself, then how completely can I forgive that other person? If I have not forgiven myself, how can I completely forgive the situations? If I have not completely forgiven myself, then how can I forgive another? Let's twist this just a bit. To love unconditionally means to love that person or the situation no matter what. No matter what happens. Because that's what it means to love unconditionally, without condition, right? I learned, and I'm glad that I've learned this and then changed this, that I did not love myself unconditionally, which meant that I would not show up authentically, which meant that I would show up in ways that I think that you would want me to show up. What is that about? See, because in showing up that way, there's this little voice, and it's not so much the inner critic, it is that inner divine wisdom that says, what are you doing? This is not you. Why are you showing up in this way for them? Space within, loving self within is that frontier. And there's never any finality to it because it just keeps going. What I've also learned about forgiveness is it is pointing the finger, right? Let me rephrase that. What I know about unforgiveness is about pointing the finger, blaming. You did this, you do that, yeah, you did this. But what I recognize in pointing the finger, there's one finger going towards the person, but there are 3 more coming back right at me. Oh my God, let me look at self. So now we get to forgive ourselves, or I get to forgive myself for judging that person. I get to forgive myself for not speaking up. And for me, that's what the whole issue was in my relationships, is I was afraid to speak up. I was afraid that I would be judged for speaking my truth. I'm going to say something here, okay? I'm going to tell you something. Do not be afraid to speak your truth. You have to stand in who you are, because what is good for you must be good for everyone else, because we are all one, correct? So absolutely stand in the relationship with self. Forgiveness. It is written that we should forgive 70 times 7, which is the Aramaic way of saying you just keep doing it. And you keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it. Then after a while, you find that this person that you're forgiving, or the situation that is being forgiven, is another aspect of God showing up in such an interesting way. But as we continue this forgiveness work, we find that there really isn't anything to forgive, because we have now stepped into a vibration of really, truly unconditional loving everything that goes on. In this process of forgiveness, in this process of self-forgiveness, in this process of healing whatever wounds were deep within me, I found that life is amazing. Life is absolutely perfection in action, in spite of what the appearances are, in spite of what seems to be going on, in spite of tragic incidents that we have just witnessed and have been a part of just this week. In spite of all of that, we must be strong enough to look within, and then to recognize those parts within ourselves that might be judging, to look within ourselves to find that part within us that might be condemning. Where am I condemning within me? What I love about situations such as this is that it allows us to stand up and go, first of all, let me find out where I may be acting out in this way. Now, it doesn't have to be physically acting out. It doesn't have to be visibly acting out. In fact, it's more important to recognize, where am I acting out within? I used to be a very, very quiet person. I used to say that in my group of friends that I was the quiet one, until one of my friends said, "Oh, dude, no, you're not quiet at all. You might be private, but you're not quiet." But I perceived myself as being quiet because I did not want people to judge me. So my forgiveness work for self was, let me forgive myself for judging myself. Judge not, lest ye be judged. It's all an inside game. It is all an inside game. So it is really about forgiving self. Another thing about lack of forgiveness, it is directly tied into financial debt. It is directly tied into your prosperity. How is that? I'll explain. When I do not forgive, then I am saying that this person owes me something. You owe me an apology. You owe me something. So, of course, to be owed means that this person now is indebted to me. On a vibrational level, spirit, the universal law, doesn't really differentiate between vibrations that I give. So I'm standing in this vibration of you owe me. And so now I'm in debt, or they're in debt to me. So once we start to forgive others, and especially forgive ourselves, that's when we become free. We become free to be the creative agents of spirit that we were born to be. We are free to be absolutely free to fly. We are here to absolutely live the life of God that we were created to be. I forgive me. I forgive me. Because if I do not forgive me, how can I forgive the individuals that perpetrated the events over this past week? How can I forgive the situations that are going on around the world? I forgive me. We must stand together as a forgiving and a forgiven group of people. Had an individual, a very good friend of mine, say to me, he says, Eugene, why don't we walk today as if forgiven? How would it feel to know that you are forgiven, that you have forgiven yourself completely? How does that feel? Think about that. I forgive me. I forgive myself for all the mistakes that I have made in the past. I forgive myself for not being more. Come on, brother. I forgive me. It is time to let go. So join me in prayer and bring to mind anything, anyone, any institution that is ready for you to let go. Bring to mind anything that is ready to be let go. And I speak this word recognizing first that God is all there is. I recognize that there is this infinite intelligence that is at the center of all life. From the blade of grass to the expansiveness of the galaxies, there is only one power here. There is only one life here. There is only one presence. Yes, it is known by so many names. You can call it Allah. We can call it Krishna. We can call it Buddha. We can call it whatever we want. But the thing is that we want to call it forth. And so recognizing that this perfection, this thing that I call God is everywhere present, then I recognize it must be right where I am, no matter where I am, no matter where I go. It is God revealing his life in, through, and as the I am that I am. Praise God. All there is God. And no matter where I go, God is right there, acting up, showing up, and absolutely having a ball in, through, and as not just me, but each and every individualized expression sitting here at CSLDallas today. I forgive me. So it is in this awareness of the oneness of God that we all are, that we stand ready to forgive, ready to be let free, ready to let go, ready to be the power in the presence of God. I forgive me. I forgive me. Woo! I'm gonna ask this music to help us to anchor this.
I forgive me.
Amen.
I forgive me. Everything that I've been holding on to. Everything that I've been holding on to. I let go. I surrender. I surrender. I surrender. I surrender. I'm ready for my change. Say it. I'm ready for my change. Say that again. I'm ready for my change right now. I'm ready for my change. I forgive me. I forgive.
Open up.
I forgive.
Open up. Open up.
I forgive. Everything that I've been holding on to, I let go. Everything that I've been holding on to, I let go.
Right
I surrender. I surrender.
Let it go.
I surrender. I surrender. I'm ready for my change. I'm ready.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
My change. Ready for my change.
Yes,
Right
yes,
now.
yes.
I'm ready for my change. I forgive me. I forgive me. I forgive.
Oh, yeah.
I forgive. Everything that I've been holding on to. I let go.
Everything.
Everything that I've been holding on to. I let go.
Let it go.
I surrender. I surrender.
I surrender to the power. Come on, man.
I surrender. I'm ready for my change. I'm ready for my change. I'm ready. I'm ready now. I'm ready for. Forgive me. I forgive me. I forgive me. I forgive me. I forgive me. Everything I've been holding on to. Everything that I've been holding on to. I let go. I surrender. I surrender. I surrender. I'm ready for my change. I'm ready for my change. This minute, come on now. I'm ready. Yeah. I'm ready for my change. I forgive me. I forgive me. Everything that I've been holding on to, I let go.
Let it go.
Let it go.
I surrender.
I surrender.
I surrender.
Surrender to your good.
Right now.
I'm ready for my change. I'm
Let it
ready.
go.
I'm ready for my change. Play that one more time. I'm ready right now.
Let it go.
I'm ready for my change.
And it is into that readiness that each one of us surrenders, that right here and right now at CSLDallas and in each one of our hearts, we know that this is the opportunity. This is the time. This is the space. This is the moment that I realize that change is within me, that I forgive me, that I surrender. I let it go. If it is not of God, it is gone.
Yes.
I commit right here and right now to be the love in the world. I commit right here and right now that I will be an example of God's love in every situation, in every communication. I commit right now that I will start with myself. I forgive me. I forgive me of everything that I have done that might have missed the mark. I forgive me for everything that I have thought about myself that is not true. For what is true is that God so loved the world that God created me, that God created you, that God created every person and every other form of life, and it is good. For God is good. God knows good. God only creates good. And right now we simply stand in that good. I forgive me. I'm so grateful to know that I can stand in that good. I can forgive myself, and that in turn helps me to forgive others and to create a loving presence in the world. I forgive myself, and I am so grateful that I am able to do that, and that I am a part of a community that is committed to doing that. So I am not out in the world alone trying to make love happen. And so if you, like me, know that this is a special moment, this is a moment in time that represents the eternal moment of love, the eternal presence of love and light operating through the law, then I invite you to simply release with me into the divine presence of this higher power that is Christ consciousness expressing in each one of us. Release with me into that and know it is already done. And join me in affirming it, accepting it, and allowing it to be by saying together, and so it is.